The sky above the ruins was gray and heavy with smoke. Broken towers leaned like tired giants, and the ground was full of ash and twisted metal. Ethan, a human scavenger, walked carefully through the empty streets, his boots crunching on broken glass. He was tired, his backpack almost empty, and his stomach growled with hunger. He had been alone for many weeks, searching for food, searching for something to keep him alive. In the distance, a faint whisper floated through the ruins. At first, Ethan thought it was the wind moving through hollow pipes. But then he heard again, soft and fragile, "Please, please help." Ethan froze, his hand moving to the small knife at his belt. Voices in the ruins usually meant danger, soldiers, raiders, or worse. He crouched low behind a fallen wall, his heart beating fast. The whisper came again, this time closer. Ethan slowly peered around the corner, and what he saw made him pause. Two small figures crouched near a broken doorway. One was a girl, thin and trembling, her skin pale with strange blue lines that glowed faintly. The other was even smaller, a little child who clung to the girl's arm with tired eyes. They were not human, that was clear. They were alien children, alone in the ruins. The older girl's eyes met Ethan's, wide and filled with both fear and hope. She pushed her sister gently forward and whispered again, "Feed my little sister, human. I will give you my only toy." Her voice shook, and in her hand she held out a small object. It was a doll, worn and broken, made from strange material that shimmered even in the dark. Ethan stepped out slowly, his knife still in his hand. He could not believe what he was hearing. Aliens were enemies. That was what he had always been told. They had attacked colonies, destroyed human ships, and started wars. But these were not soldiers. They were only children, thin and starving. The little sister coughed weakly, her body shaking. The older girl held her close, eyes locked on Ethan. "Please, she has not eaten for 2 days," she whispered. Her voice was soft but desperate, like every word cost her strength. Ethan looked at the ration bar in his pocket. It was the last one he had. If he gave it to them, he would have nothing left for himself. He stared at the toy in her hand. It was nothing useful, nothing that could help him survive. Why would a child offer something so precious in exchange for food? The thought made his chest heavy. This was not a trick of war. This was pure desperation. Ethan slowly put his knife away and pulled out the ration bar. He walked closer, his steps cautious. The little alien girl hid her face in her sister's arm, but the older one stayed still. Her hand shook as she offered the toy forward. Ethan shook his head. "Keep it," he said quietly, pushing the ration bar toward her. Her eyes widened, full of shock and relief. The girl broke the bar into small pieces, giving them to her sister first. The little one ate quickly, crumbs sticking to her face. She smiled weakly for the first time, a soft light glowing in her small eyes. The older sister only took a tiny bite, then closed her eyes as if tasting heaven. Ethan watched silently, his stomach still aching, but something inside him felt warmer than food could give. "Why are you here?" Ethan asked finally, his voice low. The girl looked down at the doll in her lap, holding it close. "Our village was burned," she whispered. "Soldiers came, they destroyed everything. Everyone ran, but we got left behind." Her voice cracked, and she pulled her sister closer. "We have been hiding, waiting for someone, anyone." Ethan felt a chill run through him. He looked around the broken ruins, shadows moving with the smoke. If soldiers had attacked this place, they might still be near. Helping these children could mean danger. But leaving them behind felt heavier than the hunger in his belly. The girl lifted the doll again, her hands shaking. "You saved us," she whispered. "Please, take this, my only toy. It is all I have." Her eyes were bright with tears. Ethan hesitated, then slowly reached out. The doll was strange, covered in small, glowing lines that shifted like tiny rivers. When his hand touched it, the lines pulsed faintly. The girl gasped, staring at him with surprise. It responded to you," she said softly. Her words made Ethan uneasy. What kind of toy was this? Why would it react to him? The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the sound of metal creaking in the distance. Ethan tightened his grip on the doll, his eyes scanning the shadows. For the first time in weeks, he was not alone, but now danger felt closer than ever. The ruins were silent, only the sound of broken metal shifting in the wind. Ethan sat near the children inside a half-collapsed building, his back against the cold wall. The little sister slept now, her tiny body curled against her sister's lap, her breathing soft. The older girl kept her eyes on Ethan, cautious but not afraid anymore. Her hands still clutched the strange doll, as if it was her last shield. Ethan's stomach twisted with hunger, but he said nothing. He had chosen to give his last food away, and now there was nothing left for him. Still, as he watched the small alien child sleep peacefully, he felt the choice had been right. The girl broke the silence with a quiet voice. "Why did you help us?" she asked. Ethan looked at her for a moment before answering. "You were desperate, and I cannot just walk away." The girl lowered her head, brushing the child's hair gently. "You are different from the others," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "Others?" he asked. She nodded slowly, her eyes heavy with memories. When humans came before, they did not help. They only took. They searched for food, for weapons. They did not look at us like we were alive. Her words stung, but Ethan said nothing. He had seen men who had become like wolves in these ruins. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was only an exception. The toy in her lap glowed faintly again, its lines shifting like rivers of light. Ethan found himself staring at it. "That thing," he said. "It reacted when I touched it." The girl nodded, her voice hushed. "My father said this toy is old, older than our home. It comes from ancestors. He told me it would only answer to a human." Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Why me?" he asked. She shook her head. "I do not know, but my father believed it was important." The words made Ethan uneasy. He was no hero, no soldier, just a scavenger trying to survive. Yet now he sat here with two alien children, holding a strange object that pulsed with light when he touched it. He wanted to throw it away, forget it, but something inside told him not to. A sharp sound broke the silence, metal scraping against stone outside the ruins. The girl stiffened, holding her sister close. Ethan raised a hand, signaling for silence. He moved carefully to the edge of the doorway, peering out. Shadows moved through the smoke, not human, not alive. Drones, small machines with glowing red eyes, hovered low across the street, their sensors clicking as they scanned the ruins. Ethan's pulse quickened. The girl whispered, trembling, "They're looking for us." Ethan ducked back inside, his mind racing. He had seen drones before, war machines left behind to hunt survivors. If they found the children, they would not show mercy. He looked at the girl, her face pale with fear. "You brought them here," he whispered sharply. She shook her head quickly. "No, they follow the toy. They want it. That is why I offered it to you. If you take it away, maybe they will leave us." Her words struck him like a knife. The toy was not just a child's doll. It was something far greater, something dangerous. But could he abandon them now, leave them to face the drones alone? The thought churned inside him like fire. The drones moved closer, their red eyes glowing through the cracks in the wall. Ethan pulled his knife, though he knew it would do little against machines. He whispered, "Stay quiet, stay low." The girl nodded, clutching her sister tightly, her small body shaking. The sound of the drones grew louder, a deep humming filling the ruined building. Ethan's breath came slow and steady, his eyes fixed on the doorway. One drone drifted past, scanning with a sharp beam of light. For a moment, the light touched the glowing toy, and the drone paused, as if it had found what it was searching for. The girl gasped softly, and the drone turned its red eye toward the sound. Ethan leapt forward, slamming his knife into the drone's eye. Sparks flew. The machine screeched, its blades spinning wildly before it crashed into the floor. But the noise was too much. The others turned immediately, their sensors locking onto the building. Ethan grabbed the girl's hand, "Run," he hissed. She lifted her sister and stumbled after him, her eyes wide with terror. They raced through the broken halls, rubble falling as drones crashed behind them. The humming grew louder, closer, relentless. Ethan's lungs burned, but he pulled the children forward, refusing to stop. At last they ducked into a collapsed stairwell, pressing themselves into the shadows. The drones swarmed past, scanning, searching, then moved away into the deeper ruins, their hum fading slowly. Silence returned, heavy and broken only by the sound of the girl's sobs. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard, his knife still in his hand. The little sister whimpered softly in her sleep, but she was safe. The older girl wiped her tears, whispering, "They will not stop. They will keep coming." Ethan looked at her, then at the strange, glowing toy in his pack. He knew she was right. He had only wanted to survive, to find scraps in the ruins. But now he was caught in something far bigger. Two alien children, a strange toy, and machines that hunted without mercy. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, then whispered, "Then we will keep moving, together." The night settled heavy over the ruins, the sky a blanket of smoke and dim stars. Ethan and the two sisters hid inside an abandoned metro tunnel, the air damp and full of dust. A single broken lamp above flickered weakly, throwing shadows across the walls. The little sister slept again, her small body curled in a corner with a piece of cloth wrapped around her like a blanket. The older girl sat near Ethan, her glowing eyes reflecting the light, her hands gripping the strange toy. For a long time, neither spoke, the silence broken only by the dripping of water somewhere deep in the tunnel. Finally, Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "You said this toy is from your ancestors." The girl nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the glowing lines on its surface. "My father told me it holds memory, a light of our people," she whispered. "He said it would awaken if a human touched it, but I never believed it, until you—" Ethan frowned, staring at the object. When he first saw it, he thought it was nothing but a doll, a child's treasure. But when he held it, the lines had pulsed with life, as though the toy itself recognized him. "Why would it respond to me?" he asked. The girl looked at him, her eyes full of both fear and wonder. "Because you are human, and long ago, my people and your people were not enemies." Her words sank into Ethan like stones in water. All his life, he had been told that aliens were the enemy, the destroyers. Yet here was a child saying the past had been different. He wanted to ask more, but before he spoke, the toy shimmered in her hands. The glowing lines expanded, forming patterns that spread like rivers of light across its surface. The tunnel walls reflected with faint blue light, as though stars had been painted across the darkness. The girl gasped, clutching the toy tighter. "It is showing something," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan leaned closer, his breath caught in his chest. From the toy rose a small projection, hazy at first but slowly taking shape. It showed a figure, tall and robed, speaking in a language Ethan did not understand. The sound was soft, echoing like the voice of someone long gone. The girl translated in a hushed tone. "He says, the bond between human and my kind must not be broken. Only together can the light survive." Ethan's heart raced. This was no toy. It was a message, a relic carrying the weight of an old truth. The girl stared at him, eyes wide. "My father was right. It reacts to you, not me. You are part of this." Ethan shook his head, frustration heavy in his voice. "I'm just a scavenger, not a soldier, not a savior." But the girl pressed the toy into his hands, the glow burning brighter the moment his fingers touched it. The projection grew sharper, revealing shapes of great cities, stars, and then fires swallowing everything. The message repeated in that same ancient voice, echoing through the tunnel. Together, or nothing. The little sister stirred from her sleep, her small voice calling weakly. "Syrah," she murmured, reaching out. The older girl, whose name Ethan now knew was Syrah, gathered her close, whispering comfort. Ethan watched them, the toy heavy in his hands. It was more than a burden. It was a key, maybe even a curse. Why had fate placed it in his path? A sudden rumble shook the ground above, dust falling from the tunnel's ceiling. Ethan snapped to alert, pressing the toy against his chest to dim its glow. Syrah's eyes filled with fear. "They found us," she whispered. The sound of mechanical humming echoed faintly down the tunnel. Drones, more of them, sweeping the city ruins above, their sensors searching for the glow. Ethan gritted his teeth, tucking the toy back into his pack. "They will not stop until they get this," he muttered. Syrah clutched her sister tighter. "Then we must keep moving, but where can we go?" Ethan looked down the endless stretch of the tunnel, dark and broken. He thought of leaving them, of throwing the toy into the shadows and walking away. But when he saw the little girl's fragile face resting against her sister, the thought burned in his chest like shame. He could not abandon them. Not now, not after seeing the message. He sighed, pulling his knife from his belt. "Then we go deeper before the drones close in, and we find out what this thing really wants from me." Syrah nodded, her eyes steady now despite the fear. "You are part of it, human. I know it, and maybe my father knew it too." Ethan shook his head, but he said nothing. The toy pulsed once more in his pack, as though agreeing with her words. The ruins above groaned, the humming of the machines growing louder. Ethan whispered, more to himself than to them. "This was never my fight, but maybe it is now." And with that, he led the sisters deeper into the darkness of the tunnel, the strange glowing relic guiding their path. The metro tunnel stretched endlessly, damp air heavy with silence. Ethan led the way, his knife ready in one hand, his other hand steadying the pack that held the glowing toy. Behind him, Syrah carried her little sister, whispering soft words to keep the child calm. Their footsteps echoed faintly, every sound making Ethan's nerves tighten. For hours they walked deeper until the tunnel opened into an old station. Broken signs hung from the ceiling, and benches were covered in dust and mold. A few broken vending machines stood against the wall, their glass cracked but still holding long-expired food. Ethan searched quickly, hoping for something, but all he found were rusted cans and empty wrappers. His stomach clenched in disappointment. Syrah watched him, her face pale but her eyes sharp. "You are hungry too," she said softly. Ethan forced a small shrug. "I have been hungry for days. I will live." Before he could say more, a faint hum carried through the air. It was low at first, but it grew quickly, vibrating through the walls. Syrah's eyes widened. "The drones," she whispered. Ethan cursed under his breath, pulling the toy from his pack. Even without touching it, the lines on its surface glowed faintly, as if calling to the hunters. The station filled with a red glow as a drone floated in through the broken stairwell. Its eye blinked with cold light, scanning the area. Ethan pulled Syrah and her sister behind a pillar, signaling for silence. The drone hovered close, its sensors sweeping. Every second felt like an hour, the little sister's breath shaky and loud in the silence. Ethan tightened his grip on the knife, ready to attack. But before he moved, more shadows dropped through the stairwell. Not just drones, soldiers, human scavengers armed with rifles and armored vests. Their leader barked orders, "Spread out. The signal is here. Find it." Ethan's blood turned cold. These were not war drones acting alone. They were guided by humans. Someone else was after the toy, and they were close. Syrah clutched her sister tighter, her whisper shaking. "They know. They are here for the relic." Ethan nodded grimly, pulling them deeper into the shadows of the broken platform. He scanned the station, eyes darting for escape routes. But the soldiers spread quickly, flashlights cutting through the dark. One beam swept dangerously close, lighting the dust around them. Ethan pressed himself flat against the wall, holding his breath. The leader raised a small scanner in his hand, its screen flickering with faint blue light. "It is near," the man growled. "Do not let it slip away." The toy inside Ethan's pack pulsed brighter, as if answering. Syrah's eyes filled with terror, but Ethan shook his head sharply. "No sound, No movement, he mouthed. One soldier drew closer, his boots crunching on broken glass. He swept his light across the benches, then toward the pillar where they hid. Ethan braced, ready to strike if he had to, but then a sudden noise came from the far side of the station. A rat scurried across the tracks, knocking over a small can. The soldier turned quickly, following the noise, muttering curses under his breath. Ethan exhaled slowly, his body shaking from the tension. But their luck would not hold for long. The scanner in the leader's hand beeped sharply. Here, he barked, pointing toward their side of the station. The soldiers moved in formation, rifles ready, red eyes of drones lighting their way. Ethan's mind raced. They were trapped, 3 lives against a squad of hunters. If he stayed still, they would find him. If he moved, they would hear him. Sira touched his arm, her voice trembling. My father said the relic protects those who are chosen. Maybe it can help us. Ethan looked at her, doubt in his eyes. But with no other choice, he pulled the toy from the pack. It glowed fiercely now, brighter than ever, light spilling across the walls. The soldiers shouted, raising their rifles. There, grab it. Suddenly the ground shook, the walls trembling as cracks spread across the ceiling. The relic's glow shot upward, filling the entire station with blue light. The soldiers staggered, covering their eyes, their machines glitching with static. Drones spun wildly, their sensors blinded, crashing into walls. Ethan pulled Sira and her sister through the chaos, running toward the far tunnel. Shouts echoed behind them, gunfire cracking, bullets striking stone. Dust rained down as they pushed deeper into the dark. Only when the sounds faded did Ethan slow, his chest heaving. Sira looked at him with wide eyes. You see, the relic chose you. It reacts only to you. Ethan shook his head, his voice low and harsh. The tunnel stretched on, damp and endless. Ethan's boots scraped against the cracked floor as he guided Sira and her little sister forward. The glow from the relic dimmed slowly, its light now no more than faint lines across its surface. Behind them, the echoes of shouts and machines had faded, but Ethan knew the soldiers would not stop. They had seen the power of the relic, and they would chase it until it was theirs. When they reached a wider chamber deep underground, Ethan signaled for a rest. Sira laid her sister down on an old bench, covering her with a ragged cloth. The little one stirred, her breathing soft and uneven. Ethan crouched near them, watching silently. His stomach growled again, louder than before, but he ignored it. Sira broke the silence, her voice low but steady. You saved us again, human, but you cannot keep running forever. Ethan rubbed a hand across his tired face. What choice do we have? Sira held the relic out toward him, her small hands glowing faintly from its light. This is not just a toy. It is a key, she whispered. Ethan frowned. A key to what? Sira's eyes darkened with memory. My father told me it opens a chamber, a place where my people stored food, water, medicine, even knowledge before the war came. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. And you waited until now to tell me this. Sira shook her head, her voice trembling. I do not trust you. I thought maybe you would leave us. Maybe you would take it and run. But now I see it only works with you. Ethan felt the weight of her words, heavy as stone. He was no leader, no hero, but somehow this child believed in him. What makes you so sure it will work? Ethan asked, his voice sharp. Sira looked down at her sister, stroking her thin hair gently. Because without it, she will not survive another week, she whispered. She needs food, she needs care, and this chamber is our only chance. Her eyes lifted to his, shining with both fear and hope. If you help us reach it, all that is inside will be yours too. Ethan's mind spun with thoughts. Food, water, medicine, all the things he had been searching for in the ruins. But with them came risk. The soldiers hunting them would not stop, and carrying the relic made him a target. Still, the memory of the child's small hands reaching for crumbs of food burned in his chest. He could not deny what he had already chosen by saving them. He leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes. "You are asking me to risk everything for a promise," he said quietly. Sira shook her head, her voice stronger now. "I'm asking you to risk everything for us, for her." She nodded toward her sleeping sister. "And for yourself, because running will only end with death, but the chamber may give us life." Ethan opened his eyes and studied her. She was young, maybe no more than 13, yet her gaze carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Her hands clutched the relic like it was the last piece of hope she had. For a moment, Ethan saw not an alien child, but simply a child, fragile and desperate. He sighed, the decision heavy but clear. "All right," he said, "I will help you. We find this chamber, but if it is a trap." Sira interrupted quickly, shaking her head. "No trap. I swear it. Only survival." The relic pulsed once in his hands, glowing brighter at his words. It was as if it had agreed to the bargain too. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. This thing was guiding them, watching them, maybe even binding them together. Suddenly a faint noise echoed through the chamber, the sound of metal grinding. Ethan stood quickly, knife in hand, his eyes sharp. Sira pressed her sister closer, fear flashing across her face. But after a moment, the sound faded, leaving only silence. Ethan exhaled slowly, lowering his knife. "Then it's decided," he muttered. "We move at first light. You show me where this chamber is, and we get what we came for." Sira nodded, relief softening her face. "Thank you, human," she whispered. Ethan did not answer, his eyes fixed on the relic glowing faintly in his hand. He wondered if he had just made the best choice of his life, or the worst. The ruins above were quiet when Ethan led Sira and her sister out of the tunnels at dawn. The air was sharp with dust, and the sky burned faintly orange through the haze. They moved carefully, avoiding the open streets, slipping through broken buildings and collapsed alleys. Ethan carried the relic close to his chest, its faint glow hidden beneath his jacket. Sira walked beside him, her little sister cradled in her arms. The child's breathing was shallow, her small body trembling with weakness. Every step seemed harder for her, and Ethan knew time was running short. If the chamber was real, they had to find it before she slipped away. After hours of silence, Sira pointed toward the remains of a great tower that leaned dangerously to one side. Beneath, it was a gaping crack in the earth, half covered by rubble. "My father said the path begins here," she whispered. Ethan eyed the ruins carefully, his instincts screaming that danger could be close. But he nodded. "Then let's move." They climbed down the crack, using jagged stones as steps. The air grew cooler as they descended, the sound of dripping water echoing from below. At the bottom, a wide cavern opened before them, walls smooth and carved with faint glowing lines. The same patterns that covered the relic shimmered here, too, stretching across the stone like veins of light. Sira gasped softly, clutching the relic with both hands. "It is answering," she whispered. The toy pulsed, brighter now than ever, and a low hum filled the cavern. Ethan tightened his grip, uneasy but fascinated. The relic projected lines of light into the air, forming a path deeper into the cavern. Sira looked at him with wide eyes. "It wants us to follow." They walked down the glowing path until they reached a massive stone door. The surface was covered in alien markings, and in its center was a hollow, shaped exactly like the relic. Sira looked at Ethan, her voice trembling. "This is it, the Chamber of Echoes." Ethan hesitated, then pressed the relic into the hollow. The cavern trembled, dust falling from the ceiling as the door shifted. Light spread across the carvings, filling the cavern with a radiant blue glow. Slowly, the heavy stones slid open, revealing a vast chamber within. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. Inside were shelves carved into the walls, filled with strange containers sealed with glowing locks. At the center stood crystal-like structures that pulsed faintly with light. On one side, Tanks of clear water shimmered, untouched by time. On another, stacked crates of food rations lay preserved, their seals still unbroken. Syrah dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "It is real," she whispered. "It is all real." Ethan moved quickly, checking the supplies. He cracked open one of the containers, pulling out a sealed package of food. Inside was a bar, different from human rations but still edible. He handed it to Syrah, who broke it carefully and fed her sister. The little girl chewed slowly. Then, for the first time in days, her breathing grew stronger. A faint smile appeared on her face before she drifted into deeper, calmer sleep. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. For the first time in weeks, there was food, water, hope. He looked around the chamber, realizing this place was more than a vault. It was a legacy, a message from a people who had prepared for the end. And now, somehow it belonged to him too. But the chamber was not silent. As Ethan explored further, he found a pedestal near the center. When he placed his hand on it, the relic glowed again, projecting images into the air. Holograms of alien cities appeared, bright and full of life. Then the images shifted to fire, war, destruction. Finally, a warning voice echoed through the chamber, deep and sorrowful. "Only together will the future survive." Ethan stepped back, his heart pounding. The message was the same as before, but stronger, louder. Syrah's eyes were wide, her voice trembling. "It is telling us the war was not meant to divide us. Humans and my kind were meant to be one." Ethan clenched his fists, staring at the images fading in his silence. He had never believed in destiny, but now destiny seemed to have found him. Before he could speak, a sharp sound broke the calm. The hum of drones, faint at first, but growing louder. Ethan cursed under his breath, pulling the relic free. Syrah gasped, clutching her sister. They followed us. The chamber that had felt like salvation suddenly became a trap. The heavy stone door rumbled, beginning to slide open again. Red light cut through the blue glow, and the shadows of machines crept inside. Ethan raised his knife, the relic glowing fiercely in his other hand. The Chamber of Echoes was no longer safe. It had become the battlefield. The Chamber of Echoes shook as the heavy stone door opened wider. Red lights pierced through the blue glow, drones hovering like metal predators, their eyes burning with hunger. Behind them came the soldiers, rifles raised, their leader shouting over the hum. "Do not damage the relic. Bring the human and the children alive." Ethan stepped forward, knife in one hand, relic in the other, his heart pounding. Syrah pulled her little sister against her chest, whispering comfort, even as fear shook her voice. The relic glowed brighter, lines of light racing across the walls. It was as if the chamber itself was alive, answering to the danger that had entered. The first drone darted forward, blade spinning. Ethan swung his knife, sparks flying as he struck its sensor, the machine crashing to the ground in smoke. Gunfire erupted, bullets striking the crystal walls, flashes of light bouncing across the chamber. Ethan ducked, pulling Syrah behind a crate of supplies. "You stay down," he hissed, his eyes locked on the advancing soldiers. Syrah clutched the relic when Ethan pressed it into her hands. "Why give it to me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because if I fall, you run," he said, his voice hard. "But this is not just about survival anymore. This is about what comes after." The relic pulsed fiercely in her grip, glowing so bright it lit the entire chamber. Holograms burst into the air once more, showing human and alien standing together, fighting side by side against the void. The soldiers froze for a moment, stunned by the images. Ethan used the chance, charging forward with desperate strength. He slammed into one soldier, knocking his rifle away, then spun to kick another drone, sparks scattering across the floor. But there were too many. The leader stepped forward, his rifle aimed at Ethan's chest. "Give us the relic, scavenger, and maybe I will let you live," he sneered. Ethan stood tall, blood on his arm, his chest heaving. He looked back at Syrah. at her little sister clinging to her clothes, their eyes wide with trust. Then he shook his head slowly. "You will never have it." The relic answered his words, exploding with light so fierce it blinded everyone. A deep hum filled the chamber, the crystal walls resonating like a living heart. Drones malfunctioned, their sensors burning out, crashing into the ground one after another. The soldiers stumbled, their rifles sparking, systems failing. The leader screamed orders, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of energy flooding the chamber. Ethan staggered but held his ground. The light wrapped around him and the sisters, shielding them from the chaos. Syrah gasped, her voice breaking. "It is protecting you. It chose you." Ethan clenched his fists, his voice low and steady. "Then let's end this." With a final surge, the relic unleashed a wave of energy that threw the soldiers back through the stone doorway. The heavy door slammed shut with a thunderous crack, sealing them out. Silence fell, broken only by the soft hum of the relic fading into calm. Ethan dropped to one knee, exhausted, sweat dripping down his face. Syrah hurried to his side, clutching her sister with one arm and the relic with the other. "You saved us," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Ethan shook his head, forcing a small smile. "No, we save each other." The little sister stirred, her small hand reaching out to Ethan. She pressed the doll. "No." The relic, back in his hand, her voice weak but clear. "You keep it, human. It is not just mine anymore, it is yours too." Ethan stared at the glowing object, feeling the weight of her trust. It was no longer payment, no longer a bargain. It was a bond, a promise. He rose slowly, looking around the chamber filled with food, water, and knowledge. Here was a chance for life, for survival, not just for them, but maybe for more. The war outside was still raging, but in this moment, Ethan knew something had changed. He was no longer just a scavenger, and the children were no longer just survivors. Together, they were something new. Family. Syrah's voice broke the silence, soft but filled with hope. "Where do we go now?" Ethan looked at the sealed stone door, then back at the glowing relic. "Forward," he said quietly. "Wherever this takes us, we go together." And so they stepped deeper into the chamber, the relic lighting their path. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as the beginning of something greater.